So you better sell that home or we're just going to take it from you. So we got a story out of Georgia that really piqued my interest and wanted to talk to you guys about it on the channel. So the story goes, Georgia Power is putting in roughly 35 miles of new transmission lines. And if you don't know, transmission lines are the giant power lines you see, maybe by highway or going through a farm field, that are the big metal structures. And they carry the power from the actual plant to a substation, and then, the smaller power lines that you see on the wood poles to your home. So they're putting in 35 miles of this big ass power line. And they are saying they need roughly, that's about 300 parcels of land they're going to need. Now, that's going to cut through some residential property. Unfortunately, it's not all just farmland or state land or anything like that, or commercial land even. It's residential, people's homes. So the story goes, and stay tuned for this one, guys. Make sure you watch to the end because it gets pretty dang crazy. Of Georgia Power is putting in this new transmission line, and they need to acquire this land. Problem is, like I just said, people's homes are in the way. They don't want to sell. Even if they're going to come in with a decent offer, a higher offer than you would get just regularly selling. People's homes are important to them, and moving is a pain in the ass. Even if you have a decent amount of money, it's still a huge process and pain in the ass for anybody that's actually moved. So this family has been fighting with Georgia Power over this issue because they're trying to force her to sell, and they don't want to sell. This is their family home. This is, where the kids grew up. All their memories are. It's a nice home. And what? They don't want to move at all. It's theirs. They own it, and they shouldn't be forced to sell. Simple as that. So Georgia Power has been harassing and fighting this lady and her family for months now over getting her to sell her home, because evidently her home is in the way of said path of transmission lines, or at least part of it. She doesn't want to, and basically, billion-dollar energy company, that's who powers Georgia Power, is they're going to be forcing her to sell her home, and they're going to be taking it from her one way or the other. And what is this for? What is this new line for? Is it just better power, more sustainable power for the Georgia people? Nah, not really. It's for data centers. Imagine that. Georgia Power needs 80% more power to supply and power these data centers that are going to be going in Georgia, apparently. So per usual, these billion-dollar companies in collaboration together, because we have the billion-dollar corporation of the data center, so some big AI company, who knows what it is, Meta, Amazon, OpenAI, whatever, it doesn't matter. So, they obviously have plenty of money to throw around, and they're the ones going to be building the data center. Georgia Power is going to be powering it. They need big-ass transmission lines from the power plant to power that. So this family who's lived in Georgia, their family has probably lived in Georgia, and for generations, they're forced to sell now because some giant AI corporation is coming in, building a data center that I'm sure the town doesn't want to begin with because they're very unpopular. And now, to not only top everything else that comes with the data center, which I'm sure you guys have seen of what comes with a data center, all your natural resources are basically gone. You have no more water pressure. The water pressure that you do have is brown, murky, and terrible. It destroys the natural landscape of your town. It takes up precious land, it takes up precious farmland. They're noisy. They emit whatever you want to call it, energy, radiation. They definitely emit noise. So they're noisy, they're ugly, they're just bad. And for what? So AI can eventually take your job, replace you, kill us if we're into the Terminator scenario here. So that's what Georgia Power needs this new transmission line for. And how are they going to take it? They're going to force you to sell because they're a billion-dollar company, so they're going to offer you a decent-sized paycheck. And if you don't want to sell, and there's more important things than money, then they're going to take it by force. And how do they do that? They do it through a little thing called eminent domain. Now, if you don't know what eminent domain is, it's where, let's just call it an entity right now, can come in and legally take your property, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, when I say entity, Georgia Power is not the government. Georgia Power is a company that supplies electricity to Georgia, right? They are not the government. What was eminent domain originally created for? It was created so that the government could come in and take your land. Not saying that's any better, but it was for the government. You know, at least to make it clear, I'm not a fan of either way, but at least it was the government taking it, and it was for a specific reason. You know, it was originally created during the 50s and 40s when they were building the highway infrastructure system, and they needed to build highways through farmland and obviously people's land and what have you. So that's where eminent domain came in from. But unfortunately, it's kind of progressed to where if any sort of big, once again, entity needs your property, they can take it by force. And it's like, how did that transition from the government needing it for, you know, let's say crucial infrastructure, if you want to try to paint a pretty picture with it. The government needs it for an infrastructure program. It's like, okay, do I agree with that? No, but that's a reason. But now it's transitioned into, if you have enough money and you have a big enough company and deep enough pockets, you can just use eminent domain to take whatever the hell you want, which is crazy because that's not how it should work in this country at all. It doesn't matter if you're a little guy or a big corporation, that same person should have the same rights. Obviously, that's not how it works here anymore, which is very unfortunate. But that's how it should work. So these big corporations can now just basically buy off the law and let them use eminent domain to forcibly take your property. And yes, eminent domain does require whoever's taking it to provide compensation. However, there is no specific amount. There is no percentage of the value. So it could be whatever. But that's not even the point, because if you don't want to sell, then obviously you're not financially motivated. And if you're not financially motivated, then it doesn't matter who's going to come in with what sort of money, because you don't want to sell. It's your property. It's your home. You love it. You potentially built it. It's potentially been in your family for generations. You know, that land itself could mean a lot to you. And now big corporations or governments or whoever the hell else has deep enough pocketbooks can come in, buy off eminent domain, and steal your property. And that's what's going on with this specific case in Georgia dealing with this family. She doesn't want to sell. She's not financially motivated. Therefore, she doesn't want to sell. And they still need that tract of land. They're going to take it from you via eminent domain through the power of the federal government, which that shouldn't even exist in, quote, a free country where you own land, but only until the government says so. It's basically the same thing with property tax. You know, you can work hard, pay off your land and house, but you know, if you don't pay your property tax, then you're done, and they can take that land any which way from you. Even if that stuff is all up to par, they can still take it if your land is deemed valuable, basically, and in a good spot. Sorry, you know, American citizen who is protected by the Constitution and all of this stuff, we're still going to come in and take it from you. Tough luck. You know, and of course, Georgia Power makes this statement because this story, where I seen it, was out of CBS News, so they did question them. And you can find this story. It's basically everywhere. Georgia Power comes out with their spokesperson and says, you know, that, oh, we feel for this family, and we try to do this in the best, most civil way possible, and we don't ever want to use eminent domain. That's the last option, blah, 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 giving you some sap story. And we all know that the PR person talking is very trained, and Georgia Power doesn't give a crap about the people that built them up and pay them and make them $1 billion. They don't care. All they care about is the highest bidder. And who's going to be paying them the most money for electricity? Of course, that's these huge data centers. So they're going to bend over backwards for whatever they do. The person that just has a regular 2,000 square foot house, they don't give a crap what you think, you know, when they're going to be raking in millions, potentially billions from these data centers going in that are going to be using an assload of electricity. So it's all kind of crocodile tears. They don't care. They don't care about this lady. They don't care about their family. They care about the dollar. They care about the bottom line. An eminent domain, going back to it, is for use, like I said, for critical infrastructure serving a public purpose, right? That's the definition of it. How is a data center for public use and for public purpose? In my opinion, that's for whatever company is building that data center. That's for financial profit and gain. That's all that is. How is that for public purpose? How does that serve a perfect purpose to the public? Just look up any town council that a data center is going into, no matter what state. Every time the town is pissed off and doesn't want the data center, there's always a huge fight. Nobody wants it. Unfortunately, whoever, you know, is in charge, city council, whatever, they're usually been paid for, of course, by the AI company. But yeah, guys, so kind of to recap, Georgia Power is coming in, bulldozing basically 35 miles of land, private, farm, public, to put in new transmission lines for a new data center that's going into Georgia that nobody wants. And they're forcing families to sell their family homes and properties to build this new transmission line to put in for the data center. And if the family doesn't want to sell, like this particular family, they're going to be using eminent domain, which I just explained doesn't make any sense and is a complete load of BS. So this one really interested me. I think it's totally unfair, out the window. Don't think it should be happening whatsoever. If you don't want to sell, they should find a different route then, you know, go around, whatever, go through state land, find a different way is what they should do. So definitely drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is okay? Do you think that you would be pissed? Yeah, and let me know what you would do in this situation. How would you be upset? Would you just be like, whatever, and move on? Or, you know, would you try to make a stink and put up a fight? Drop a comment, let me know. Subscribe to Cigars and Coffee, guys. We're getting up there. We are at 20. Let's hit 50. That's our goal. Let's hit 50 subs by the end of the month, and we're going to keep cranking out interesting topics and videos like this. So I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.